Have you watched this episode of Standard Science? Let's talk about that. At last, the day we have all been waiting for since May 31st of 2019 has arrived. April 13th, the day of Lee and Mary Lee's wedding. Coincidentally, also the date of Thomas's big callback. Thomas is over the moon for this next big step towards his dream career until Patton gently reminds him of his prior commitment to attend a wedding for two of his dear friends. It isn't long until we get an appearance by, who else? Deceit. Having first made his appearance disguised as Patton in the episode Can Lying Be Good, he dons the tie of our favorite logical Logan, and his immediate tactic is to figuratively open the floor to Thomas so that he may say for himself which commitment he preferred to fulfill. Because Logan's friends knew full well that idioms aren't necessarily his forte, being the type to take things more literally, Deceit is unmasked with haste. His reveal immediately pops up Virgil, who is all but thrilled to see the adder-faced antagonist. While the trio urge our Virulus Viper to leave Logan's place in the mindspace, Deceit finds that his presence, much to Patton's dismay, means something about Thomas and the recent dilemma at hand. Deceit throws the others into a courtroom where the truth comes to hang out. Roman is placed in the role of judge, which is a great move from Deceit, since he is well aware that Thomas's passion throws him in the side of a callback. Patton is thrown way out of his element, and when he finds himself backed into a corner, he admits to Thomas that he doesn't know what to do. At this point, Thomas admits with hopelessness in his voice that he doesn't want to be a bad person. Thus begins Patton's resolve, and where the narrative turns around. Deceit gets put in the hot seat, and he peels back the curtain of his intentions to make Thomas finally admit to himself that he wants to go to the callback more than he wanted to go to his friend's wedding. This reveal is a blow to all but Deceit, who feels a moment of triumph as he's sure the callback is imminent. It all comes down to Roman, and that is when our dear prince sentences Thomas to the wedding and cracks the gavel. A little less than a year later, the audience is thrown into a game-like intro as we relive Thomas's memories of the wedding. A quick greeting, a sad photo, and a high score on Word Crush later, Thomas storms into his house and headspace loaded with F-bombs. Needless to say, in Thomas's mind, his choices in the game of life left him with a bad ending. But there is no reset button, and the callback is here and gone. Our dear pal Patton tries to console Thomas, attempting to reassure him that he did the right thing, despite gaining nothing from the situation. Patton's attempts, though well-meaning as he always is, sets Thomas in a downward spiral until Patton explains himself into a corner, and all this dissecting of morality causes Patton to frog out, and exposes himself, warts and all. In this moral quandary, who else comes to save the day but Deceit? Once again, disguised as logic, having given our loyal Logan the hook earlier, Deceit explains in the danger of always putting someone's needs over your own, and how even helping others must be done in moderation. This comes as a blow to Patton, but not as much as it does to Roman. Deceit extends the first olive branch by revealing his name, Janice. Roman reacts unsympathetically, leaving Janice to coil up and strike back where Roman is most insecure. Roman, taking Patton and Thomas's silence as betrayal, leaves the conversation. In the end, Janice and Patton call a truce and, as far as we know, decide to work together. Wow, so there's a lot to take in. I'll separate my thoughts into 4 key parts. The lore, that is to say, throwbacks and Easter eggs. The logicality, the character development, and where I think the narrative might be taking us next. I may focus on all the little things I noticed in a later episode, but for this video, I'm only going to focus on things significant to the lore of Sanders Sides. There was a lot, so I might not get to all of them, but these are either fun or interesting things that I noticed during my watch. There are also things that MOOSHOU posted, and I won't duplicate their list a bunch, but I suggest you check out their video about this as well. In regards to games, when Thomas pulls out his phone at the wedding, he plays Word Crush, symbolizing his failed attempts at communication to his friends while there. Notice that everything he thinks of to say comes out as the wrong answer. By the way, his wallpaper background is a picture of him and half of a blonde next to him. I thought maybe it was an X or something, but MOOSHOU says it's John Coe's art, and I can see that. We also see each curse word bleeped out with a coin animation and sound throughout the video. Next we come to a banger of a song where one half is illustration very reminiscent of Ace Attorney, and the other half is being a dance rhythm game with chibi versions of the sides. This was interesting because on the bottom there are the beats with the active color corresponding with the characters. Patton is blue, Roman is red, and Thomas is white. I love the split screen because while the right side is giving us some lovely scenes focusing on the character speaking and giving us a flashback, the left gives us a view of each character simultaneously, and we can see their reactions to the events even as they aren't talking at that time. Dab your problems away, Thomas. Though speaking of that song, Echo Stormy posted a YouTube video where she sang Logan's rap against Roman and the tempo fits perfectly, which I don't think was intentional, but fabulous all the same. There is a piano piece while Thomas mentions feeling forsaken, and Patton mentions how he got his resolve to help Thomas with this decision. While I'm certain there is a secret in there somewhere, the closest I could get was that there is a piano piece at the end of the Moving On episode, and there are a lot of parallels in the spirit of, well, moving on. But I digress. Thomas mentions making a decision with a blindfold on, which was used in Deceit's attempt as an analogy to prove his point near the end of the original Selfishness versus Selflessness, which I'm just going to call SVS from now on. Meanwhile, Thomas's query on whether Patton saw him as a good fellow jumps to the occurrences during the Intrusive Thoughts video. In fact, all of Patton correcting himself is a consequence to that video, but more on that when I talk about Patton's character development. Also, the bagel thing is a reference to a previous video, and I think it's funny that in the end Thomas does get pastries with Lee and Very Lee, which is another form of baked good later, but it's not important, just funny, and I liked it. Moving on. Heading forward to Logan's mention of Friedrich Nietzsche, whereas he is mentioning how Patton's philosophy seemed to resolve around pity, a yellow and black skip all button shows itself, and in a panic, Patton presses the button. Something he told Roman not to do, might I add. Perhaps an example of what is said versus how one acts on instinct, which Deceit mentions later. And what happens? Logan is hooked, thrown aside like a bad performer in an audition. We see this cane later in Deceit's hands. It stands to reason that this is the moment that Deceit takes Logan's place, which also shows via the shift faux Logan takes towards mental health, and the first time the side we are perceiving as Logan expresses his own opinion rather than that of a philosopher or a study. When Patton expresses that he said in the past that Thomas should take time for himself, it's first mentioned in the Logan and Patton episode, The Mind versus the Heart. And then we get to go to the part that we all didn't see coming. Deceit's name. He takes off his glove, in homage to the courtroom scenario in SVS. He is exposing himself, becoming vulnerable, a symbol that he isn't going to hide. And then he tells us, Janus, the same name as a Roman myth of a two-headed god of doorways, beginnings and endings, transitions, and all that jazz. Spelled Janus. This revelation is cut short, however, by Roman's biting criticism, and like any snake feeling threatened, Janus bites back. Roman says to Thomas, I thought I was your hero, something he said to Roman in the episode of Am I Original? Roman looks to Deceit, who nods, but Roman sees Deceit as lying, a classic side who cried wolf scenario. Roman sinks out, and we'll talk more about this later. Right now, I want to bring up the last big subtlety that I personally adore. When Patton tells Thomas what he thinks his problem has been, a familiar piano piece plays, but not because it's played before. Well, not like this. It has a soft melody to it, like Patton's theme, but the theme itself is Deceit's. A perfect combination of Patton's call for empathy and Deceit's motivation for self-care. A compromise. later also illustrated in the end card with patent and deceit standing together. I will talk about this too. But first, let's talk about the logicality. I need to tell you a couple things about me real quick. First of all, Logan is my favorite side, with Janice following close behind. I relate to them most as sides more practical than the others. As an anthropology sociology major with a minor in philosophy and English, the science and the studies of many of these episodes delight me so much. This won't be a terribly long section because Thomas and his crew did a phenomenal job in explaining the philosophies in the video, but there are a few interesting facts that I would like to add. The biggest thing I wanted to mention was about this line.
Why is killing and stealing illegal everywhere? Is it?
Yes, murder is illegal to a degree everywhere, but there are stipulations over what counts as murder and what type of murder should be punishable. Some places count only murders on purpose as actual murders. Some only count murdering certain types of people as bad. Some take into account the reason for killing, i.e. self-defense. But in every society, there is a do not kill law to a certain degree. Like what Janice said in the first SVS, a society is really just a group of people living in a general area. So how come rules are so similar around the globe? Colonialism. No! Well, yes, but that's not for this video. I'm talking about Hammurabi. Hammurabi was the 6th king of Babylon, and he started expanding his kingdom throughout the Mesopotamian river towards Tigris and Euphrates. But as he grew, he began to realize that the people of his new empire weren't exactly getting along. There were too many people, things were getting out of hand, and each society had a bunch of different rules which clashed with one another. And so, Hammurabi wrote what was later called Hammurabi's Code. It's one of the first written examples of law and order that exists to this day. Now, it doesn't mean that he was the first one to say, don't lie, don't steal, don't kill, etc. I'm sure places like Egypt, which was a society long before Hammurabi, had a set of rules. And in fact, Hammurabi's Code had taken inspiration from the oldest known written list of rules, which was made in Ur, also Mesopotamia, by Ur-Nammu. But Hammurabi's Code is especially important because it was this code that was adopted into what we know as law and order today, especially because it may be the first time both parties of the crime are allowed to offer evidence to their innocence or to their reasoning. I'm mainly going to focus on why the code was made as an example as to why a society relies on these rules and why ones like killing and theft are always so major. This is going to be just a small tangent, I promise. I'll go back to standard sides, and I promise this is important. I'm going to scale down a second. When you want to arrange a group of people for a thing, whether it be a Discord server, a gathering, a protest, you put in a set of rules. Many rules are the same as most other gatherings because those are basic ones needed to prevent the gathering to turn into a frustrating, unfocused pile of confusion. People follow these rules because they too want to see the group succeed. That's why they joined it. Then as problems arise unique to the group, more rules are added to try and keep things running as smoothly as possible. Societies are the same. You see no murder in every rulebook you see, but it's not always because they feel that murder is wrong. It's because if people are off killing other people in the society, then the sense of danger is going to end up killing everyone in that society. There is no oath in loyalty, there is no trust in the society, and therefore it's impossible to get people to do what is necessary to keep the society healthy. You can't go stealing from everyone because, same thing, people are going to get angry and nothing is stopping them from stealing back, and essentially causes instability. Rules are put in a society to keep them stable. It's to provide a foundation, a list of requirements for every individual to follow in order for everyone in the society to live together peacefully. Thomas doesn't speed because you feel in your heart is wrong. He doesn't want a speeding ticket. And the ticket is the punishment for not following a rule that is there because it was proven in the past that going faster than a certain speed can make it difficult or impossible to stop in time for obstructions in the road. The speed limit is there to keep the society going without a surplus of car accidents and deaths, and people obey that law because they don't want the punishment they get for breaking it. Janice was right. A society is a very flimsy thing in that it only exists as a group of people agreeing to follow a set of rules. Logan was right. A society cannot function with said rules. What about empathy? I'm getting there. But surely people don't murder and steal only because they're not allowed to. You don't kill because you don't want to get punished. The reason you don't kill is, hopefully, because you don't want to be responsible for the life of another person. Because subconsciously, if someone had the option to kill you, you would hope they wouldn't, because you're a living, breathing, thinking person with hopes, dreams, and a family. Yes, religion dips into this a lot too. There are those certain that they would be punished more than in a worldly manner and so do not do things. But in the end, most people just don't want to be the cause of another person's suffering. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled program. Poor Patton was talking himself into a hole in the entire episode because he was trying to justify why going to the wedding was the better decision than going to the callback. The point where he really started to lose Thomas was when it was about feeling good, because Thomas going to the wedding didn't feel good at all. And yes, the wonderful Logan pointed out in the video that acts of kindness improve a person's feeling of happiness. But as Janice brought up in the end of the video, with Logan's help, is that constantly acting on the side of altruism, even at the expense of your own self-care, can cause you to feel the opposite. You can feel lack of control over your life, get more stressed. Then just as Logan mentioned about your stocks-in-law, in Virgil's Focus 2-part episode, you will reach an extreme point of unproductivity, and this can heighten depression and intrusive thoughts. Patton thought he was wrong in SVS because feeling good became associated with a reward. But that's exactly what empathy does. You feel good for doing good things because you gave someone something that you would have wanted while in their position. You do what makes you feel good, and it's up to you to decide where the line is for you individually between selfishness and selflessness. They are two sides of the same coin. Both important factors to a well-balanced person, and one shouldn't be more important than the other. I saved the best for last, y'all, I have to admit. Of all the good points Sanders Sides has, this episode's shining achievement was the character development. Holy moly, take me to the moon! Let me start with Patton. I mentioned before that Patton did settle with Logan that putting your self-care first was important, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that relates to saying and even knowing a thing is true, and yet contradicting it with your actions. It's easy to say something is true, but much harder to implement, or even to recognize when the scenario arrives. This episode was essentially Patton exercising these scenarios. It's no surprise that Patton would always lean towards doing what seems right for other people, but he forgets Thomas's limits and what he can do frequently. That isn't to say Patton is completely blind to it. On several occasions, he has contributed to what Thomas needed and is even aware of the dangers in indulging too much, seen in the Nostalgia 2-part episode. He is Thomas's emotion. When he talks about wanting to help others, it's the part of Thomas wanting to always do good for others. At the point where Patton mentions feeling good shouldn't be the end goal for doing good, that's Thomas feeling guilty for wanting to feel better after doing what he felt was a selfless act for his two great friends, Lee and Mary Lee. Patton is the good force to Thomas, the one that embodies his empathy and drive to be a better person, his entire moral code. This is a stark contrast to Janice, who Patton himself described as Thomas's center of self-preservation. And like Virgil, Thomas takes for granted just how crucial that is. When it comes to the moral compass, Patton and Janice are on the opposite sides, but the real development for Patton was when Janice revealed his name. Patton is best at self-reflection. He manages to learn when he is in the wrong, apologize, and adjust accordingly. He was right. He has been apologizing a lot as of late. But that's because that's Thomas recognizing in himself that he's been harsh on himself for things far beyond his control. Patton recognized that he was based off of a set of lessons that were viewed as universal, when really, as Thomas gets older, things are becoming more complex. And so, recognizing that he doesn't have an answer to everything, he finally welcomes someone with a different viewpoint than him. Someone that challenges what he believed to be true. He stands by Janice in the end card so that they can work together, which to me is the most grown-up thing our self-proclaimed papa has done yet.
Where are your kids, Patton? Where are your kids?
How are you a dad if you don't have any kids?
Hey, you know what? This might be a little messed up, but since Roman and Remus were split because of Thomas's pure view on creativity as a good force, does that mean that his morality, Patton, is the one to technically split them apart? Which means Patton is Roman and Remus's dad in a way. Roman's character development isn't entirely cut and dry because of the three sides focused on. Roman's development was more of a regression. He's definitely on a downward spiral right now. Roman's catching himself in his insults because he's overcorrecting and not being like Remus. When we meet Remus in the Intrusive Thoughts episode and Roman wakes up at the end having come to a realization, we've never really been told what that realization was. But Roman did also explain his feelings being like that of a funhouse mirror. He sees his brother, and in that, everything he doesn't want to be. Yet in Roman's first real sincere apology to any of the sides, it's in calling Logan Nerdy Wolverine, just like Remus did before. Which was brilliant, because Remus called him Nerdy Wolverine because he kept coming back from Remus, knocking his teeth in the nose and tossing a shuriken into his forehead, and ability Wolverine has in X-Men. But Roman probably related it more to the fact that Logic and Wolverine are both named Logan. Same jab, different viewpoints. The point is, Roman doesn't want to be anything like his brother. He's associated Remus as the evil side, and seeing as how chaotic Remus is in Intrusive Thoughts, it's no wonder. So when Janice strikes Roman with the insult that his mustache was the only thing separating the two, it cut him deep. I mean, he sort of deserved it. Regardless, it seems interesting how Roman could be more or less on Janice's side in SVS and now be so vehemently against him joining the sides in any significant role. I mean, he said himself.
Are you seriously so close-minded to think that everything said by someone you don't like is automatically untrue?
I mean, it might make sense if... Wait. Could it be that Roman's anger and fear of deceit coming into the picture means he feels afraid that Remus might be the next to be welcomed into the group? What's more, if morality becomes more relaxed and tainted as Roman sees it, could he be replaced by Remus completely? Or worse, become combined with his brother, losing himself and becoming what he so desperately wanted not to be? How about we go to Janice for a bit? Yes, Janice! We can't ignore that we had the biggest character development for Deceit, because we learned his name. I have to admit, in the first SVS, I wasn't entirely satisfied with the ending, because I knew that while going to the wedding was a loving and selfless thing, I myself see the struggle in achieving my own dreams, where there just always seems to be some more important thing that comes up. But it was okay, because this was Thomas's decision. It was Roman conceding his entire purpose for the sake of what Thomas's morality thought was right. But we can see that after Janice is alone with Thomas, his first instinct is to gently pursue a possibility of another round of callbacks. Though, half joking, it's clear that Janice is fighting for Thomas's passion, even when Roman isn't. Selfishness isn't in itself an evil thing. You have to be selfish sometimes. You have to take care of yourself, especially when the world is filled with nothing but expectations that it expects you to fulfill. And there are some moments where you have to be more selfish than normal because you're hurting. Especially in a moment of grieving, mental health must take priority. My two favorite Janice parts when it comes to understanding his growth was the insult and the nod. You know the ones. Thomas does such an amazing job conveying emotion with these characters. He does such a good job telling the audience how the side is feeling without using any words at all. Roman makes a jab at Janice's name, and you can see the betrayal. At the end of the insult, you can see Janice back away a bit. A recoil, as though reacting from danger. And then when the insult hits Roman, you see his remorse, his regret. Janice immediately feels bad about what he said. The insult was reactionary to feeling threatened, but then feels shame for his reaction. He's trying to work together. He's trying so hard, you guys! And then the nod. Roman looks to Thomas, says he thought he was his hero, and Thomas replies, "You are." We know this is true. But who does Roman turn to for confirmation? Then Janice. Then Janice, in his most sincere, wholesome way, he nods. Thomas is telling the truth. But this came from deceit, someone Roman knows only as a liar, someone that has played into his pride in every episode they've been together so far. This is just another lie. But Janice, realizing this, his smile fades. He doesn't speak in his defense when Roman calls him evil. His own nature worked against him. In an attempt to grant solidarity, he only gave doubt, and he regrets that. And we see it. That look on his face. Look at it. That is the look of a sad, slithery boy right there. In conclusion, Janice is a good character. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I think the next episode is another Sanders asides, so it may not be addressed quite yet, but I expect that they're going to have to address Virgil's reaction to everything, if not both Virgil and Remus. And I haven't been talking about it. I've kept it as vague and secret as his presence. But the look of the thumbnail on the episode and the hello message left in one part all but confirms that there is an orange side. The entire color of the rainbow, the most mysterious one of all. Will we begin to see mentions of the side? Will Roman's reaction to this episode contribute to the reveal of who this mysterious side is? Will it be Remy? I don't think so, but oh my god, can you imagine? That would be amazing. Just like Remus being all, I wish Thomas would listen to me more, and Remy sipping a coffee saying, get in the car, bitch, I'm taking this ride with you. But first of all, Remy doesn't fit the name pattern with Janice and Remus. And by the way, I totally believe Virgil changed his name from Vargas, and good on Janice and Remus for respecting the name change if this is the case. Second of all, sleep isn't really a personality, though it's certainly a mood. Anyway, I can't wait to meet Orange Side. But I feel like they have to address Janice first. What will this mean for Virgil? We still haven't addressed Thomas finding out Virgil was a dark side, as Roman and the fandom calls them. Or perhaps that was part of what convinced Thomas that Janice had some value as part of the team. We have so much hanging in the air that I think the Orange Side is going to be a mention before a reveal. A build-up. A warning, possibly. That would give our sides a bit of time to adjust, some time for them to either come together or break apart before the final side emerges. Or, perhaps, it is a side that will be the cause for the unrest or the breaking apart. Perhaps his small, unmentioned presence in this episode is the beginning to his presence having an effect that we are unaware of because we don't know what part of Thomas's personality he conveys. Regardless, I'm stoked not only for more to be revealed, but also of the different relatable, worldly situations to be addressed with these characters. Will Logan and Janice have a debate? They are, by far, the two most analytical sides, and man, I want to hear them talk philosophy, but I'm sure no one else does. Will Roman learn to love his brother and respect himself as a different individual side? Will Remus officially join the group? Will Roman ever get his own flavor of Crofter's jam? I have no idea. But you guys, I am so ready to find out. Spirits, Demons, and Cryptids, thank you so much for listening to me and going to this end card. I've got some links in the description if you want to continue to support me. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you want to see more of this. I have other things that I plan to show you in the future, and hopefully I will see you all later.